All right, hello everyone. My name is Matt and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to give you a breakdown of my classroom management strategy. Even though you can kind of see what I'm doing in class in all of my videos, I actually have had people ask me, when should I give points? When should I take points away? What do the stars mean? These kinds of questions. So today I thought I would just break it down and explain to you step by step how I manage the class and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, so the first step in my classroom management strategy is splitting the class into different teams. Now you have a few options for this. You could split them into teams by rows, you could split them into teams by table if they're sitting at different tables, or you can split them into teams of girls versus boys. Now for a long time I liked to use girls versus boys. It just made things simpler because sometimes the Chinese teachers like to rearrange their seating if you don't have your own classroom. And if they're in girls versus boys, it won't matter where they're sitting, the teams will always stay the same. But this year I decided to do it by row, and I've done that in the past, but I find that girls versus boys is easier for some aspects of classroom management. But for rows, with rows, I think it's better for games. It works much better if they're in rows because the teams are smaller. So you can drill things easier and stuff like that. And another benefit to teams by rows is that if one team is falling behind, they're not going to just totally give up. Like for example, if it's girls versus boys, and let's say the girls they've won a bunch of classes. So I'll get into that later, but when the team wins the class, they get a star. And so if the girls are way ahead, like 5 stars ahead, and the boys know there's no hope of catching up, or they feel like there's no hope and they start to give up, classroom management can start to suffer. But if they're in teams, then even if that same thing happens and one team is further behind, it's only like a quarter of the class or a sixth of the class if you have them in 6 different teams. So it won't be as big of a deal for the classroom management. Imagine half of the class has already given up or half the class doesn't care as much about the points. That can really cause a lot of headaches. So you have a choice. You can either do by rows, by table, or girls versus boys. Now this year, for the whole year, I was doing by row for all of my classes, except for one of the classes where the teacher loves to rearrange the seating of the kids more than once a month, so I can't do it by row because it would just be too crazy. In the past, when I have done it girls versus boys, and it was working perfectly, and then sometime during the middle of the semester, the teacher decided to rearrange the seating. It was okay. I gave a gift out, which is what I do for the team that has the most stars, in the middle of the semester, and we started from 0 stars again, which was just fine, but I wanted to try this year just doing it by row and see, if I could make it work. And so far, there's only been, I think, 2 classes where there was any issues with the teacher completely rearranging the kids and throwing off my system totally. But normally, there's a girl and a boy sitting together and their row will move. The entire row will move to the right, or I think it's to the right every week. So the teams remain the same because each row is the same. Their position just changes. So what I do when I get to the class is I set up the board like this. And this is the way it'll look in the beginning of the year. Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4. Or in some classes I started the wrong way and I did Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, Team 4. And then when I come to the class and I'm setting up the board like this, I ask the kids, where is Team 1? Because maybe the teams have moved and the teams have shifted. And so they'll tell me oh, Team 1's here. So I'll put Team 1 here, and then I'll say, where's Team 2? And they'll say, oh, Team 2 is here or here. And then I'll fill in the rest of the teams. And so it's all simple like that. Team 1 is the team sitting there. Team 2 is sitting here, Team 3 is sitting here, and Team 4 is sitting here. But if they shift, then it's okay. Team 3 is here, Team 4 is here, Team 1 is here, Team 2 is here. It's very simple, but I think this strategy works really well, and I'm gonna explain why. Okay, so the next thing I need to explain before I get into the points is the rules. So in my class, I have very, very clear rules. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that at the beginning of all the classes, especially for the beginning of the year, I go through the rules in English and there's Chinese translation there. So the kids are very clear about what the rules of the class are and what I expect. With children, if they know exactly what you want, they feel more comfortable. They know exactly how to earn the points, which I'm gonna get to in a second, and they know exactly why they're losing points. So they know exactly what they should do. And this gives them a feeling of comfort. If I do these things, this is gonna happen. If I don't do these things, this is gonna happen. So the rules are crucial. And also the rules make it, they learn a lot of really good English from these rules, So there's 6 different rules in my class, for example, sit nicely, be quiet, raise your hand, etc. And this is really good English that I want to make sure they learn. I want to make sure they know it for sure. And also during class, when I give them points or take away points, I'm going to refer to the rule. I'm going to say like, oh, she is sitting nicely, and then I give a point, okay? Or he is talking, no talking, and then I take a point. So they understand why. They're not just sitting there like, what did the teacher say? Why are points being taken away? They know, because every single class I go over the rules and we say the rules together, so they're fully aware of what the rules are. And when they lose a point, they can't say, well, I didn't know that. What's going on? They can't pretend. Because I did have students do that in the past, like 6-7 years ago, before I had really explicit rules that I went through on the PowerPoint. I would tell the kids, eyes on teacher Matt, they were turning around or something, and I'd take a point, and the kids would be like, for grade 4 or whatever, they would be like, they didn't understand why, and you get some kids who want to talk back, but now if there's rules, they have no excuses, okay? They know exactly what they're supposed to do, and if they don't do it, it's on them, okay? So the rules are crucial. Make sure you have rules. You can go and watch any of my videos. You'll see all the rules, and if you download any of my PowerPoints, all of the PowerPoints have the rules in the beginning of them. I have rules for grade 1, 2, and 3, and then the rules for grade 4, 5 are a little bit different, similar, but a little bit different. And yeah, the rules are just part of my warm-up and crucial classroom language, so definitely have rules. Okay, so as I just referred to in the previous part, you're going to be giving points and taking points away based on them following the rules or not following the rules. And the key here is to be very, very, very consistent, especially in the beginning of the year when you want to establish your classroom management. As the year goes on, you can be a little bit, more lenient once you have more classroom control, okay? But in the beginning, you really want to be strict about the rules, especially for the first few weeks or even the first few months, depending on the age of the students. So what I do is I want the kids to learn that the rules on the board, the points on the board are totally in their control. Like how many points they have is just based on their behavior. Obviously, it's also games and stuff are gonna play in there, but what they're gonna see really quickly is the points they earn from games, especially at the beginning of the year, are gonna be nothing compared to the amount of points I take or give based on their behavior. So when I first go in the class, and again, you can watch any of my videos and you'll see me doing this, I am giving them points just for being ready. Whichever team is the most ready before class begins, I'm already given extra points. So when I walk in and I'm setting up my room, I'm watching them. They're all very aware that I'm watching them, as I'm setting up the board, I'm paying attention to what's going on. And they're like, teams are sitting nicely. I have a video I'll link above where you can see that the kids know this so well by grade 2 that the moment I even walk in the room, they're like, oh, Teacher Matt's here, and they want to sit down. They want to earn those extra points, those freebie points that they don't have to do. They have to rely on the luck in a game or something to get. Okay, so when I begin class, I say who was ready and polite before class, and then I say, I'll recognize certain students or entire rows that were ready, and I'll make them stand up and I'll give them extra points, or I'll recognize certain students who were sitting very nicely and like paying really close attention, and then I'll give those students extra points. And they love that. They love that they can do that and they can get those extra points. It actually became kind of a problem because I would come to class, 6-7 minutes before the bell rings to set up the computer and set up the board, and it's their playtime. But the second I walk in, like my grade 2s, like they're all sitting nicely, and I'm setting up the board, and like it's dead quiet. I turn around and like whole class is already sitting there because they want to get the extra points. And I'd actually tell them like, it's okay. Class begins at 9:30. At 9:28, I write 9:28. That's when you need to sit nicely, and you'll have students even asking, will even ask me what time do we need to be sitting nicely? They really want those extra points, but I want them to have their playtime. I don't want them to, be sitting nicely and just already in that zone where they're super focused on me before I really need them to be. but I love that I have that kind of control, right? So it's great. Anyway, so the points work like this. When the class begins and I start teaching and doing stuff, if I notice that like a team is sitting really nicely during my, like the warm up or whatever, or even just randomly during class, I'll be like, team one, good job, team one. Team one is sitting so nicely and they're being very quiet. Team two, team three, team four. I see students talking. Team one gets 3 points or 3 points, okay? And once they notice this, they're gonna be like, oh crap, and the other kids will start to be like sitting nicely and recognizing that this is gonna happen. And if you're consistent with that, if you're consistent, you're gonna see that they want to get those points. They don't wanna be the team that is not achieving the extra points, especially if it's just one row that's just talking. And I notice, so I'm teaching, we're playing a game or something, and I notice that one of the teams has students who are like turning, talking, breaking my rules. Eyes are not on TeacherMatt, not listening to TeacherMatt, and they're talking. I will say, team one, team two, team three, good job. You are all sitting nicely and being very quiet. Good job. 5 extra points for those teams. Oh no, team four, there are students talking. And be really specific about who those students are. Walk over, make them stand up. These 2 students are talking. Because they are talking, team four gets no points. Okay, so you're using the peer pressure because the other students on that team are now gonna be kind of angry, right? It's because these 2 students are not following the rules, their team is not getting the points, and now they're falling behind. And their chance of winning that class has gone down. So you really got to use this to your advantage. And eventually, once you've done this for a few weeks, you'll have students telling each other, be quiet, shh. Because they know, it's all very clear. The way I give points and remove points is crystal clear. You know, if you're not doing what I'm asking you to do, you're gonna lose points. If you're doing what I'm asking you to do, you're gonna get points. And be super consistent and be really specific. Like if a student's really talking and being naughty, make that student stand up. Take points from the team. It's because of you that they lost points. And then if it happens like 2 or 3 times, I have a box that I'll draw on the board and write their name. And I tell them, if their name is still on the board at the end of class, I'm gonna tell their Chinese teacher. And sometimes, if it's become a problem for a few weeks, I will personally call that student's mother. But I hate to do that. You know, I don't wanna do that. But if it's really becoming a problem and the student is really causing a disturbance, then I will do that. But it's like, you know, it's really gonna have to be weeks and weeks and weeks of the student misbehaving. Once you do that once and the whole class knows you did that, you know, it's really gonna work if you ever like even put someone else's name in the box again. Okay, but that's a different part of my explanation. I just want to talk about the points and how you just gotta be consistent. Be very, very, very consistent. And like I said, as the year goes on and it progresses, you will only need to do this, you'll need to do it less and less. Like praising kids constantly or like really giving or taking away points so consistently because they already know exactly what you want and they already have the habit of being quiet in your class, paying attention. You've already instilled in them this habit of how to do it. And then, you know, your lesson becomes much easier to control. The class becomes much easier to control. And yeah, so that's the whole thing with the points. And also with games, obviously they get points. So since you have the whole thing set up, when you're playing games in the class, you know I love to play games. Those points will be added as well. What I've noticed is that some teachers, you know, the points are just for the games. Like that's it. You know, the points are just for the games, and that's how it works. And they're not really using the points to their advantage to like control their behavior. You know, and I've even had teachers that I was training in the past tell me that like they couldn't control the class, and I told them about the point system. They knew about the point system. And they watched me do it, so they knew about the point system, but they were just missing things. Like they weren't being super consistent at the beginning of the year. They weren't, giving points for students who were doing the right things. They were only taking away points for students who were breaking the rules. When you really want to encourage the behavior that you want, recognize the behavior that you want. Because if you recognize that behavior, then the other students will know what they have to do. You know, not just know what they don't want to do, or don't have to do, or shouldn't do, I should say. Okay, so recognize the behavior that you want. Praise the students who are doing what you want. If there's a student sitting really nicely, being really quiet, you know, really, really polite student, walk over and be like, stand up, and they'll be like, huh? And you're like, this student is sitting very nicely. If they have a name, say their name. She is very good. She's being quiet. She's a very, very good student. Team 2, 3 extra points. And she'll be all excited, and her team like, yeah. And the other teams are like, huh? oh, it's that easy. All I need to do is do that same thing and I'll be able to get those points. And then make sure you're doing that too. Like after you do that, be specific. Look for another student, one of the other teams that's doing the same thing. Oh wow, look at this boy. Good job. What's your name? Stand up. Timmy. Hey Timmy. Timmy's very good. Timmy is sitting nicely. He's being quiet. His eyes are on TeacherMatt. Team 4, team 3 gets 3 extra points. Okay, so be consistent, praise them, give points, take away points. Okay, so that's key. All right, let's go to the next part. Okay, so the next thing you need to make sure you're doing is settling the class between activities or games or different parts of teaching. So what I mean is when you're playing a game and the kids come up and they're like doing whatever, the dialogue, whatever, and then those kids sit down, make sure the class is quiet before you call up the next students. Now, the way I like to do it is you just say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sit nicely. And whichever team is sitting nicely the quickest will then get extra points. Okay, so kids come up, they play the game, whole class is excited, which is fine. They can get excited, they can be excited, they can laugh, they can cheer, that's fine. The key is that when you tell them to, they settle down and are very quiet so you can then go to the next part. Okay? And the way to encourage this, again, countdown, whichever team is first gets points. Or whichever team is last doesn't get points. So when you're doing the countdown, if you notice that most of the class is like, but there's just one team or there's a few stragglers still cheering, still being super excited and still talking, that team will either lose points or the other team will get points. Sometimes I think it's more effective just to give extra points to the other teams rather than take points from that team. Because then they see like, oh, we're falling behind. It becomes somehow more clear that they're falling behind when they see the other teams getting points. So this is crucial. Settle the class between every activity, between every teaching thing, unless they're already unless you don't need to. If you see that like when the kids go sit down, most of the class is already quiet, then you just have to look around the room. Good job. Okay, good, then move to the next section. That's how it should be by the end of the year, that you can do it that way. But in the beginning, you're definitely gonna need to do a countdown. Or you can do a clap. Like you clap and they clap back. So it's like, and they do the exact same rhythm. And they clap back at you. When they clap back at you, they're focused on you and they're quiet. Okay, so there's a few different ways. Some teachers go like 1, 2, 3, or you say 3, 2, 1. They say 1, 2, 3, or whatever. Some teachers have a different strategy to focus them back on the teacher. But whatever your strategy is, it's all the same principle. You want to make sure they're quiet before the next part of the class, because what you'll notice is that the volume will continuously rise if you don't do that. And then the kids aren't focused on you. And then you lose classroom control. So you want to bring them back to 0 every single time between each teaching section. And it takes time. In the beginning of the year, you're going to see that you'll probably be using 3, 4, 5 minutes of the class for all these different countdowns to quiet them down. But that's an issue, right? If they're that loud and it's taking you that long. But as the year goes on, you'll see that you don't need to do that. But if you think of it, if you don't do that and you continue to the next section of the teaching or the next game, the kids can't hear what you're doing. So not only are they not learning because they can't hear you and they can't hear each other, they don't know what the rules are. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And even students who want to pay attention, who are trying to pay attention, can't hear because other students are talking. That's not fair. So the countdown is crucial. Settle them down, get them ready for the next part of class, and you will be the one in control. And once you have that control, it's beautiful. You do the countdown, you see they're all watching you, you look around, good job. It's beautiful. You can hear a pin drop. And when you have that kind of classroom control, everything changes, okay? And if anyone ever observes your class and they watch your class and you have this kind of control, or they notice through a window, because that happens, right? The Chinese teacher are watching sometimes, that you have this kind of control of the kids, they're gonna be like, wow, this is a really good teacher, because that shows that you have a strategy and it's working, because they teach the kids too, and they know these kids that can get rowdy and stuff, and so they see that, okay, this foreign teacher is able to get these kids to do what he wants, and they're listening and they're paying attention, and this is beautiful. Okay, so make sure you settle the class, give points, and do the countdown. Like I said, you can watch my videos and see how I do it, and you can see how I work the strategy. And you don't have to be super crazy about it. If you do a countdown, there's still a few students making some sort of noise, but it's not an issue. You know, the second you start talking or teaching again, they're gonna settle into place, that's fine. It just can't be that like more than like a few kids are making some sort of noise, because then they won't really be able to hear. So you gotta judge, don't spend all like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then there's like one kid making like rattling something and you're like, go over to him and you're yelling at him. No. Especially once you start getting them to like drill or something, you'll see they all kind of fall into place. And that's another way that you can settle them is when you're settling them, even if there's still some kids talking, when you ask them to drill a piece of language, like, okay, everyone together, say it together, you'll hear that like all of a sudden they all start saying it and they're focused back on you. Okay, so there's a few ways you can do this, but definitely settle the class in one way or another before you move on to the next drilling, the next game or whatever, and you'll figure out your own strategy, but basically you should be doing what I'm saying. This team is the quietest. Thank you. Oh. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention is the star system. So yes, you're giving points to the kids during the class, but at the end of class, make sure you count the score, which team has the most, write it on the board, and give that team a star above their team. Why do I do this? Well, you'll find if you've gamified the class throughout the entire semester, this is a larger goal they're working toward, you'll have way more control. If a kid is misbehaving or a team is misbehaving and their team is falling behind, but they know at the end of class, that's it. You're gonna restart the next week or the next class. What do they care? What do they care? But if they know that it's meaningful, if they have the most points, they're gonna get a star. And that star is gonna be with them until the end of the semester, at which point they're gonna get a gift, which I'll explain in a second. That is much more powerful than just having points for one class, reset, and go to the next class. Okay, so at the end of class, count, put the star in my phone, or you can do it in a notebook. I keep track of which team has how many stars in each class. All right, team 1 has 4 stars, team 2 has 3 stars, team 3 has 5 stars, team 4 has 7 stars, whatever it is. And at the next class, I open up my phone or open up my notebook, wherever I have the record, and when I'm setting up the class, I put up the stars, okay? I add the stars. And yeah, it's super effective for classroom control. Super, super effective. Once I started using the star system, I don't know, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, my classroom control, my classroom management, improved dramatically once I had this system in place. And it wasn't just, okay, there's points at the end of class, good job, team 2, a pat on the back, where some teachers like to give stickers, which is fine, you can give stickers, but you can give stickers for the winning team of that class, but you want to have a longer running game, which they care more about. They remember. When I go into the class, if I make any mistakes, like sometimes I'm looking through my record, and there's lots of different classes, lots of different stars, and lots of different stuff, and I'm putting them up there. I'll make a mistake. Like we'll be in class 3, and I'll accidentally put class 2's points. And the kids will immediately be like, no. And they'll know exactly. Team 1 has this many stars, team 2 has this many stars, team 3 has this many stars, team 4 has this many stars. They know, they care. They really care about it. So I'll check and be like, oh, sorry, and I'll fix it. They're right, they know, they know because it's something which they really care about, and they're invested in it. And if they're invested in it, when you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, a pin can drop and you can hear it because they care. Not just about the points in that class, but about the running game that's going on, okay? And these points go in the whole semester, 15 weeks, okay, it goes. So it's this long thing that's happening, this long game that they're playing. And even if a team so I see my grade 2s, last year at least, I saw them twice a week, okay? So every week, two stars were up for grabs. So, by the end of the semester, some teams had 10 stars or something, or more. And there can be ties, like if team 1 and team 2 both have 30 points at the end, both teams can get a star. Also, what you can do is you can say that if a team wins by only 1, the other team can get a star as well. So for example, if this team has 30, this team has 29, this team has 21, and this team has 23, you can say, okay, both of these teams can get a star because it's only 1 point difference. Okay, or you can do it if it's 2 point difference, they can still get a star. You can do it like that because they're so close, it's only 1 or 2 points difference, which was just the difference between you removing points once or twice during class, but both of them did really, really well. You can give both teams a star. It's totally up to you how you want to do it, but just make sure, this is key, keep a record of how many stars each team has. Make sure you write it at the beginning of the class on the board, and don't lose that record. You know, like I keep a record in my phone and I take screenshots of it and I have a file on my computer, because if you lose that record, obviously it's not going to be the end of the world, but you'll just lose some classroom control. I mean, think about it. If you're in week 10 and the kids already know, how many stars they have, they've been working so hard, and then you lose the record, that's not going to be good. They're not going to care as much about your class, and they'll just lose motivation. One of my coworkers, what he would do is he would take a photo of the points at the end of each class. So he had a record, okay? And it's funny because I taught his kids the next year, and at the end of class, I would be writing it down on my phone, and they'd be like, "Teacher, you're not gonna take a picture? You wanna take a picture?" Or they'd yell at the kids, "He hasn't taken a picture yet, he hasn't taken a picture yet." Okay, because they're coming up to a race. Okay, and I was like, no, I have it. Okay, so they remember how the old teacher did it, even though, I was already there teaching them for a few months, but like a student would walk up and not realize that I'm not taking pictures like the other teacher, and they know it's so important. Okay, so make sure you're running the star system, like I said, not just day-to-day points and giving stickers out. Although, like I said, you can do that. At the end of class, this team has 30, they get a star, and the whole team gets stickers. That's totally fine, Teachers like to give stickers out, kids love it, that's just fine. You can do that as well. I just don't do that in my class because it's just one extra thing I need to think about when I already know that I have control over them doing this. Okay, but some teachers like to give stickers. If you're doing this with kindergarten, which you can give stickers out. You have smaller classes, each team only has like 10 kids, and like you want to give stickers every class. That's fine, totally fine. I know teachers that do that and it works quite well. It's just not something I do. All right, let's go to the next part.
Count the score. 5, 10, 15, 18, 5, 10, 15, 20. What do you want? 5, 10, 15, 20. 4, 5, 10, 15. Okay, stay.
Okay, so at the end of the semester, whichever team has the most stars can get a small gift from you. So what I like to do is I just buy a small gift. Just a little tiny gift. It doesn't have to be something which is expensive or extraordinary. The kids just like it because you gave it to them. They feel like it's special. And what I like to do is give them something which has some English on it. So, for example, sometimes I give out rulers. This ruler has orange on it, or I have ones like watermelon, pear, lemon, apple, peach, different rulers. This is a ruler. They really love something like this. It's really nice. Or I give out a bookmark. Dr. Seuss bookmarks. There's a bunch of different ones. It's something they can use, it's practical, and they can have it with them. Or a pencil. I don't have any of the pencils anymore, I give them all away, but the pencil says like, great job, great student, excellent student, something with English on it that they know you gave them. And I still have students who I taught in grade 3, I've gone to their grade 5 classes, and they still have the ruler that I gave them. They still use it, they still remember that they got it, and it's just something special for them. And you might think like when you're on Taobao or going to a store and looking for a gift, you're thinking, well, I really need to get them something really nice. They're working so hard for these stars, right? They're really gonna like be disappointed if I just give them a pencil or an eraser or something. But not at all, okay? Not at all. I every year when I'm giving out the gifts, even to grade 4 or grade 5 even, when I'm giving out the gifts, I'm like thinking, man, are these kids gonna be disappointed that they work so hard and now like I'm just giving them a ruler. And what I found is, generally they're watching like a movie the last day because I'm giving a speaking test to some of the kids, and the other kids are watching a movie or something, and I'll turn the lights on for a second, shut the movie down for a second, and I'll say, okay, team 1 or team 2 was the winners, was the winning team this semester. So team 2 will get a gift from me, and I start giving out the gift, and they're all excited about it. And the other teams who don't get the gift are like, okay? So like it is, even if it's just a ruler or just a bookmark or a pencil or an eraser, the kids really will love it. I promise. They're really gonna love it. They're not gonna be disappointed. And I work at a nice school. Like these kids are like, they come from, I mean, they're not super rich. I mean, some of them, you know, are rich, but most of them are just like upper middle class kids who their parents can get them whatever they want. You know, they have like the nice watches, the computerized watches that they have at home. Some of them, you know, grade, I don't know if they have phones, but they have nice stuff. Okay, these are not kids who are like in need of a ruler. But because you gave it to them, because they earned it, and because other kids in the class don't get it, they love it. Okay, and everyone remembers that. I remember being in school, and in grade 4, I remember very specifically a teacher would give out pretzels, little pretzels sometimes, like on Fridays, like whoever did really well that week, she had like a list or whatever, and she'd give out a pretzel, like 3 different little pretzels. And I remember we'd have like a little tissue paper, she'd give us 3 pretzels, and like, they're just 3 pretzels. But because the teacher gave them to you at school, all of a sudden you're like, you feel so good about it. Okay, so don't underestimate the power of a simple, cheap little gift like this, as long as it's something which is nice. I mean, you can see this is like, it's nice, you know, and these Dr. Seuss things, they're colorful and they're nice. You know, don't go and buy them some like not very nice ruler, blank ruler. I mean, they'll still like, okay, you give it to them, they'll like it, but it should be something which is nice. But I go on Taobao and I spend like, you know, 500 RMB and I get like hundreds or something of these. Okay, so you can get good deals and it's worth it. You know, you spend 500 RMB or 600 RMB at the end of the semester to like give your kids a gift. And that's something which, I mean, some schools might reimburse you for that, but I don't ask my school to reimburse me for that. It's fine, you know. I want to give the kids something nice. And it helps me out because during the semester, because the classroom control I have, because they're good students, my job is much easier. I'm much more relaxed in class. It's worth it, you know. It's totally worth it. So get a small gift, give it out at the end of the semester. You can do it at the half of the semester. You can say like, okay, there's 15 weeks. After week 7, you give out 1 gift and reset. That's totally fine. I just don't do that because I haven't found a need to. You know, I think there was one situation where one team got really far ahead and their team was just dominating. Not only were they really good students, but like they were getting really lucky in the games as well. And yeah, they were earning a lot of points. And I think somewhere in like maybe the 8th week, I like reset and gave them a gift and started from 0, just so the other teams like, you know, weren't so upset and like giving up. So definitely give out gifts. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is the class rank system. And so I just started implementing this year and it's worked really, really well. So what I do is at the end of the week, I see my grade 2s. I just did it with grade 2. This year I taught grade 2, grade 5, and grade 6. And I didn't really do the point system with grade 5 or 6 this year. I think with grade 5, I did it for the first semester, but I don't need it. Like the kids know me. I had them in grade 4. Their classroom behavior is quite good. They understand what I want, you know, so it's fine. But like, you know, if it's the first year, they're younger students, you know, I always use the points. Anyway, so this year, what I did with grade 2 is I taught 4 grade 2 classes, and at the end of every week, so I taught them on Monday and Friday. On Friday, on the board, I would write down the class rank. You know, essentially, it's which class was the best behaved on Monday. Okay, so on Monday, class 4 was really, really good. They were the best. You know, they were just better than the other classes. I make a judgment call at the end of the day, which class was the best today. I have a little, in my phone, I'll write down like how the class went, you know, just like a few words about how the class went. And then on Friday when I go back, I'll look and say like, okay, yeah, class 4 was really good. And then, okay, class 3 was next. They were pretty good, not as good as class 4. Then there was class 1, who were not as good, a little loud, you know, just didn't do as well. And then there was class 2, which just was really bad this week. They didn't, well, when I say really bad, like I have a high standard, I guess. They were a little talkative. They weren't quieting down as fast as I wanted. Just little things which caused them to fall behind. And what I do is, let's say on the board, right now, let's say we're in class 1. Okay, I'm in class 1 right now. Hello, class 1. And this is class 1. Class 1 knows they're in 3rd position. Okay, what I do is I put this next to class 1. That's their class. Throughout the class, I'll constantly move this up and down to show where their behavior is compared to the other teams this week and where they could potentially end up if they behave well in this class. Okay, so for example, if by the end of the class, this magnet is here, that means that they're going to dethrone class 4. Class 1 will get to move to the top, Class 4 will be in second position, Class 3 in third position, Class 2 in fourth position. And again, it's amazing how I can control their behavior with this. So, you know, they'll ask me too. It's really funny. Like, there's been a few times where I forgot to write the class rank, and they're asking me, teacher, where are we? Where is Class 1? And I'm like, oh, I forgot. And I'll open my phone. I have a thing with the ranks, and I'll write it there. And if I do it really slowly, they're like on the edge of their seat waiting to find out where they stack up against the other teams. And so then I'll write like Class 4. They're like, oh. I'll write Class 2. Then here, they're wondering, are they there or are they there? And I'll write Class 3. I'm like, oh, they really care. Okay, they really, really care. And there's like bragging rights. Like they go to the other class and say that they beat them this week. And it just, okay, hold on, I'll get to that in a second. So what I do is, let's say Class 1 is here and they're doing really, really well. I'm like, wow, Class 1. I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you'll hear them like, get so excited because they know they're doing well. And it's the same thing with the point system. It's all very visual. They can see by their behavior how it's affecting where they're ending up at the end. And so like, if they move up and all of a sudden like, you know, they're doing really, really well, they're super quiet, and like Class 1 is like about to take the cake. And then all of a sudden they're like cheering and cheering and cheering. If I just walk over and I even touch the magnet, the whole class is like, shh. They care, okay? They really, really, really care. Okay, so you can really control their behavior with this. And the whole class is a team now. Here you have teams, right? There's like inter-team like rivalries. But this is like inter-class rivalry, which is even more powerful because they're like, they want to be like together as a group. That peer pressure is much stronger. Let's say there's like two kids on this side in Class 1 that are being rowdy, talking and stuff. And because of them, they might drop down. The pressure that they're gonna feel from all their classmates being like, shh, is way more powerful than just the pressure from like, 12 kids on their team. So this class ranking system really, really works really well. And I do it like week to week. So it's not just on Monday, it goes back to 0. Let's say on Friday, this is how it ended up. All right, Class 1, I'm gonna forget what I wrote here. All right, Class 1 moved up, and then Class 4, and then Class 3, and then Class 2, right? So Class 1 moved up. This is Friday. I say goodbye, goodbye. And there was other teams, like maybe that was Class 1, but I still haven't seen Class 2 or Class 3 yet. So they don't know where they stacked up when it all was said and done. They don't know like if Class 3 like beat them at the end or whatever. So on Monday when I go in, let's say I've only had class with Class 2 so far, and I'm with Class 1 now. They're gonna be asking me, like who won last week? Because who won last week is gonna determine where they begin. So if they won last week, let's say Class 1 was the number 1 team. When I go into the next Monday, the next week, since I see them twice a week, the ranking's still the same. This is going throughout the semester, okay? Now they're at the top, and they like care about that, okay? And they could lose their position. They could really lose their position. So by the end of this week, they could drop all the way down to the bottom. They could, and then the next week, the positions remain the same. So it's an ongoing thing. And this year I didn't give any like full class rewards. I was thinking about doing that. Like, okay, I'll give out like a bookmark to the winning team, and then for the winning class, give them something else. But I didn't really need to. I could have, and like that's something maybe I'll do in the future. But like I didn't need to. It was enough just to like add this element of classroom control with the class ranking. I didn't need to go any further and award something. But maybe I will. Maybe next year I'll decide, like I'll tell them, the winning class can get a second prize. You can get something different. They're like, yeah, they'll really, really care about it. And then I'll even have more control. But it's, I have enough control just with this. And if Class 1's ranked number 1, and then they really don't want to lose to Class 4, like I said, they start talking, I just walk over and I'm like, the whole class will quiet down. Okay, so it's really powerful. It's so powerful, in fact, that I've had teams which at the previous week were in 4th, and they cared so much about being in last place that they ended up being the number 1 team at the end of the week. Even though the other teams still did, or the other classes still did quite well. It's just their behavior was so good that they moved all the way up to the top. And class 2 took the lead. And at the end, and I actually tell the Chinese teachers, I'll be like, oh, your class was number 1 this week, or your class was number 4 this week, compared to the other classes. And I even tell the kids that I tell the teachers, like, I have a group chat where I tell them, I don't really do that, but I did tell the kids, like, all your teachers know where you stack up, all your teachers know the class rank. I don't really, I'm not gonna bother the Chinese teachers with that unless I really thought it was necessary, but they think it, so I get that control, okay? And I will do that in the future if it becomes a big problem, but I would just talk individually to the teachers, like, oh, your team was number 1, or your team was number 4. There's no group chat, but they thought there was, so I had that element of control. All right, so this is just something else you can add to the system, and I think it really helped. All right, one other thing I want to briefly mention is if you do have kids who are misbehaving a lot and they become a big problem for you, and you don't want to, their team to suffer totally because of just one student on their team, and they're not responding to the peer pressure, like of the points and the stars. Because generally, like, if you have a student who is, a little chatty, or like they don't understand yet, they're a little slow in the uptake for like how to behave and win and earn points, and they don't realize that they're just little kids, okay? It might take them a second, a week or 2, but eventually they fall in line, which is mostly what happens. But there's always going to be those kids who just, they either don't have good self-control because they're just like 7 years old, or they have some sort of like problems at home, or you never know what's going on, okay? And they just can't stop themselves from being naughty in class. I don't want to continuously penalize their team, because it's just, I don't think it's fair. And you're like, there's always going to be those kids that this just doesn't get to them. Okay, I have classes. This year I have 4 classes of 45 students each. Maybe in all the classes combined, I had I think 3 students who were an issue. And one of them, I think, maybe had some sort of learning disability and just couldn't help but shout out, or like he couldn't sit still. And eventually, like, if you've watched in my videos, I'm sure you've seen him in the class, and eventually, like, I wouldn't take away points from their team because of him. And he just knew, like, his name would either end up on the board, because that's what I'll do. I'll put his name on the board and make his teacher aware of it, so the teacher can add some extra pressure to him. Or he just sees his name there and he doesn't want to have his name there. Okay, so if I put his name on the board, he'll be like, I won't be penalizing the entire team, but he'll do his best then to be like, oh, his name doesn't want to be on the board. He feels this extra pressure. And at the end of the class, I'll erase it if his behavior is better. Or what I'll do is, let's say I write his name on the board. If he starts doing really, really well, I'll be like, good job, and I'll erase like 1 letter from his name. And he'll be like encouraged that he's on the right track, and then another letter until all of a sudden, oh, he's doing really, really well. He erased his name totally. So he knows he can get out of that hole, but it's something that he should be aware of, that he's misbehaving. And if you really have a problem student, like a real big problem student, I'm sure the Chinese teachers are aware of it. If it's really, really disrupting your class, you can have him go sit with his teacher in this teacher's office or something. I hate to do that because I don't want to take him out of the class. I want him to also learn, and I don't want to bother the Chinese teacher. But if there's 45 kids in the class and he's causing a major, major disturbance, or he's like fighting with another kid or whatever, like, I got to remove him from the situation, because for the interest of 45 students outweighs the interest of 1, right? So I can't just I can't let that happen, so I will make a call, like, should this student be removed? Or I'll have one of the students go and get the Chinese teacher, bring the Chinese teacher there, and then tell her, like, and she'll know, like, they're aware, like, okay, this student's an issue. I never make the kid stand outside, nothing like that. I want to always have like a visual on the kid. I don't want the kid to be somewhere where I can't see him. It's dangerous. I'll never like I've seen some Chinese teachers make the kids stand on the desk. Obviously, don't do that. Like, that is like dangerous. Don't put the kid in danger, but you just want to protect the kid and protect the interest of the whole class. Like I said, the name on the board will work, and you can put you can do like a strike system. So if a kid's an issue, you can write their name on the board and then give like 1 check if they're really continuously be bad, another check if they don't stop, and then another check, 3 strikes, 3 checks, then the Chinese teacher is going to come and take them out of there. Okay, so this is just another element if you really have problem students. It tends to be these students have, like I said, behavioral problems because of problems at home, or some sort of learning disability, which is either undiagnosed or diagnosed, but they're still in the class because there's not like a specific school or class they can go to for those students who do have like ADHD or whatever they're dealing with. So the name on the board will work, and like sometimes, you know, there'll be a kid that's always really good, like always responds to the points, and then all of a sudden, like this day, he's just not with it. And you write a name on the board, you'll like see like, you know, they'll be upset, okay? And if they're crying and I see that's just like a show, I'm like, no, your name's staying on the board. You know, like you deserve that, you know? And then if like, I'll be like, if you're good, I'm gonna erase it. And then they're like, okay, and they're like, calm down. Okay, but they have to know there's consequences. They have to know there's consequences. They can't just do what they want and like expect they're gonna get away with it, right? If their name goes on the board, they're gonna be upset. But if you put their name on the board and they start crying and putting up a show, don't be like, oh no, I'm sorry. No. Because then they'll all learn, like, oh, my name is on the board, all I need to do is cry, and then the teacher's gonna remove it. No, you know, you don't wanna traumatize any kids, but they need to learn how to behave in the class. Again, there's 45 kids in the class. The interest of one is not gonna outweigh the interest of all of them. If they wanna misbehave, there's 2 students who are constantly playing or talking or fiddling with stuff, because that's one of my rules, nothing on your desk, clear your desk. If they're doing that, they're not doing what you ask, look, their name's gonna go on the board. You know, first I will remove a point from their team or 2 points from their team, and I'll do it again. But if you know by like the second or third month that like this student just isn't gonna like fall in line, name on the board, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, get the Chinese teacher to take them out of there. And they just sit with their Chinese teacher for the rest of that class. And generally what happens is the Chinese teacher will bring them to the class at the end and they'll make them apologize to me. And yeah, generally when I've done that in the future, they're nice, good students, and I don't have issues again, you know, because they've learned the hard way that I did what I said I would do. Name's gonna go on the board. They're aware of it, they know. There's a box, they know. Okay, but they still don't listen. But eventually it gets through to them and they learn. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I've had questions from people asking about my classroom management strategy. So I wanted to put together this video to show you exactly what I do, why I do it, give you an explanation. If you guys appreciate a video like this, don't forget to smash the like button. That really, really helps me out. I'm not sure you understand how much that helps me out, but smash the like button really helps me out. It helps get this video to other people who might benefit from the video, okay? Subscribe to my channel if this is your first time here, and leave a comment below if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you guys, love to hear where you're teaching, where you're from, any questions you have. And also if you're interested in purchasing any of my PowerPoints, don't forget there's links in the video description below, or you can go to my Taobao store and you can find dozens now PPTs there, which are available for download. All right, so I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.